Hey there, viewers. Have you ever wanted to fly over the largest ocean in the world? You might have to wait a little longer because most commercial airlines aren't authorized to fly over the Pacific Ocean. Interesting, right? We're letting you know what makes trans-Pacific flights more expensive for airlines and a few other airline secrets on cutting costs. Let's start with why airlines never fly over the Pacific Ocean, plus other airline secrets you probably never knew about. Pacific Ocean. If you've ever planned a trip from East Asia to the United States, you might have noticed that almost every flight is a connecting one with a layover in Alaska. Most people wouldn't think twice about it. Who's to say what an airline can and cannot do, right? However, if you're someone with a knack for specifics, you might have noticed that the airplane could have taken a more direct route from point A to point B. How? By flying over the Pacific Ocean. The largest and deepest ocean in the world, the Pacific, is strictly off limits for most commercial airplanes. While the flight's trajectory from East Asia to the United States would have made more sense had it flown over the Pacific, more airlines have strict guidelines over flying across an ocean. Let's get into it. First of all, airlines tend to steer clear of oceans in general. While transatlantic and trans-Indian flights are still relatively common, the aircraft that fly passengers over oceans have to be specifically designed and adequately monitored. Trans-Pacific flights, on the other hand, are a lot less common. Think about it. You're flying from Japan to Los Angeles. Your flight is a trans-Pacific one that runs from east to west. Between points A and B, there's hardly any land. And if there is, it's not well equipped to tend to an airplane that's made an emergency landing. Finding a safe landing area across the Pacific Ocean is a remarkable feat in itself. Still, even if a pilot manages to land the plane safely, they'd have to invariably call for backup because there are no airports on the Pacific coast. Not only that, but the conditions over the Pacific Ocean make it unsuitable for most flights to fly over the ocean without facing significant turbulence. This is primarily due to thunderstorms and jet streams that hinder the plane's steady altitude levels and make navigation difficult. While we're on the topic, did you know that any natural phenomenon besides thunderstorms rarely deters pilots? That's right, even if there's a mild thunderstorm nearby, pilots will panic. Add hail to the mix and they'll be calling Mayday. Let's put aside the ifs and buts for a second. Most commercial airlines refuse to fly over the Pacific Ocean because it wouldn't make sense to do so. We'll explain the shortest route from point A to B. The shortest route from point A to B will always be a straight line. Now, if you were to map out the route from Japan to Los Angeles, you might notice that the only way the plane could fly in a straight line would be through the Pacific, right? Wrong. Most people have two-dimensional maps, and as we know, the Earth is not two-dimensional. Ignore the naysayers because the Earth is not flat. It is, however, also not a perfect sphere. The Earth is constantly in motion, moving around the Sun and moving about its axis of rotation for us to experience day and night. The Earth's rotational speed is roughly 1,000 miles per hour. This speed causes the Earth to expand about its center virtually. The center of the Earth, which is east to west, is the greatest width on Earth. Whoa, that's a lot of science. Let's get back to talking about trans-Pacific flights. Now that we know the distance between East Asia and the United States is not a straight line if flown across the Pacific Ocean, it becomes clear that the shortest route would thereby be what would otherwise appear as curved path on the map. This includes flying over or stopping in Alaska. In fact, many flights that reach Alaska are connecting flights between Asia and Northern America. So to recap, planes rarely fly over the Pacific Ocean owing to a multitude of reasons. From efficiency to safety concerns, the only planes that are authorized to carry passengers over the Pacific Ocean are large carrier planes with enough fuel stores to keep them from making untimely landings in the middle of nowhere. That is, of course, if they can find a place to land. But besides avoiding flights over the Pacific Ocean, here are a few other ways airlines tend to save money. Downsizing by one olive. Airlines are businesses, and like all businesses, they're always looking for ways to make more money and spend less of it. However, most companies tend to fail when they focus too much on cutting costs and too little on the negative impact it would have on the customer experience. This seemed to be a problem with most airlines that started off with high promises but eventually settled for mediocrity to meet budget constraints. Robert Crandall, CEO of American Airlines, however, found a solution. The multimillionaire realized that the easiest and most efficient way to save money will be by downsizing on something so small that it will be negligible for the consumer but would save over $100,000 for the airline. What was it? An olive. That's right, the CEO of one of America's busiest airlines determined that by taking away one olive from every passenger's salad, they'd be cutting down on over $100,000 annually. If these figures seem accurate, factor in the millions of people who travel by American Airlines every year. That's a lot of salads. The one olive principle has since been used as a metaphor in most business classes to express the importance of strategic business planning while maintaining customer satisfaction to minimize the business's operating costs and maximize its gross revenue. Tomato juice. How often do you find yourself wanting a tall drink of tomato juice when you're browsing through the aisles of your local grocery store? The chances are pretty slim, and it's because tomato juice has an acquired taste that not too many people, acquire. However, once you're 30,000 feet above the ground, you'll find yourself wanting that tall drink. Why's that? Researchers believe that some foodstuffs taste better when they're consumed in the air. This isn't to justify the taste of airline food that almost always tastes bad, but tomato juice has its flavors elevated when consumed in the air. People have commented on how ground tomato juice feels earthier and acidic compared to air tomato juice, which tastes sweeter. Tomatoes also unlock the fifth taste sense, umami. Lighter magazines. More weight requires more fuel, and more fuel needs more money. Money is a sensitive issue for businesses. They want to spend as little as they can while making back as much as they can. The easiest and most efficient way for companies to maximize their profits is by reducing the overall weight of the plane. For context, smaller planes save money in fuel for airlines, whereas larger planes bring in more money via ticket sales. To combine the best of both worlds, airlines would need to find a way to make more ticket sales but spend less money on fuel-lighter aircraft. The framework of the airplane can never be compromised. Airlines are under strict regulations to maintain their planes and make sure they're safe for flight. As a consequence, airplanes look for other ways of making their aircraft lighter. For example, lighter magazines. If you've been traveling for a few decades now, you might have noticed the in-flight magazine getting considerably slimmer over the years. The amount of information relayed is virtually the same. However, the size of the magazine or the material of it is now much lighter. Like the olive principle, switching regular magazines for lighter ones is an ingenious way to save money while maintaining customer satisfaction. Lighter utensils. According to a spokesperson for the Australian airline Qantas, the airline managed to save over $500,000 a year by switching from regular airline cutlery to their newly designed lighter cutlery pack. The lighter utensils were approximately 11% more delicate than regular airline cutlery and saved the airline hundreds of thousands of dollars in fuel. It just goes to show the difference lighter materials can make for an airline's budgeting. Alright, that's all for today's video on why airlines never fly over the Pacific Ocean, plus a few more airline tricks to save more money. Let us know what you think in the comments down below, and be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to INFORAMA for more fun and informative content. We'll see you back here soon.